Hey, everybody, and welcome to Tier 1 Interventions Podcast, where we look at your core classroom and we try to maximize your gifts and help you reach every student with their math, with their writing, and with their reading skills. But we concentrate mostly on math here at Tier 1 Interventions Podcast. And our math leader, Miss Jonily, is ready to share some gold nuggets today. Welcome to the podcast, Jonily.
And they are gold nuggets because these last few weeks have been a whirlwind. I'm going to kind of take us back a little bit. And there's another community that I teach called a math teacher mastermind. And I'm going to launch our session today. It's not our age level right now because I, at 50 years old, cannot attend for 50 minutes probably without some kind of break. But my freshmen, 14, 15-year-olds, it's funny that they will do that every day about that time because what they're telling me is I'm zoning out now, which actually connects to this research that says that they can only focus for about their age. Now, Cheri, do you want to say anything on that? I know you're big into that, and if you don't, that's fine.
No, you said it
Okay.
very plainly and very direct. That's
Okay, excellent.
exactly the case. But it gets to a point where our executive function skills around age 35 start going the other direction. That's why you at 50, me at 61. Yes, I'm telling everybody my age today. That's why our attention spans gets to be shorter. And then as our brains start to age, the time decreases. But that dopamine hit that everybody wants, and that's why scrolling on Facebook is addicting, happens and is re-triggered every 7 seconds. That's why you need it again every 7 seconds. So it perfectly makes sense why after about 15 minutes the kids are saying, hello, I'm zoning out now, can you help refocus me? Create another novelty trigger, create that dopamine hit.
And what I have done since the beginning of the year is after we transition after warm up and we start to get into the lesson, because sometimes we'll only be on warm up for about 6 or 7 minutes, sometimes longer. And then we transition to the lesson, or I start going over the warm up, depending on what that next 6 or 7 minutes look like in my classroom. I purposefully, since the beginning of the year, after about 14 minutes, I will randomly break out in song. And I do that deliberately and intentionally. It's not about mathematics. And there is a song of the day. One day it might just be, and girls just wanna have, they just wanna. It has nothing to do with the math. It's totally random. And all of a sudden the kids are like, now, in the first couple weeks when they met me, they were like, get me out of here. I don't know what's happening right now. But now they're asking for it because it's just funny to watch their teacher do that. But subconsciously, they're asking for it because after about 14 minutes, they need triggered again. They want to focus, they want to learn, they want to keep hearing me, but they're fighting with their brain. They're fighting with their brain because they want to so bad, but their brain isn't letting them. So they need something that's going to trigger their brain again. And that is something that I have done all year long, deliberately and intentionally. Now, it'll start really connecting to math. And I actually have a couple little math jingles. And a previous colleague of mine, I'm going to say her name because if she ever listens, she'll probably freak out. Her name is Julie Matheny. I taught with her my very first years of teaching. She started teaching before me, and then I was her eighth grade teaching partner. So her name is Julie Matheny, and she is an amazing person, first of all. And we haven't talked in years. I think I've liked a few things on Facebook with her and her with me, and but we literally in a dozen or more years we haven't connected. But she actually made up multiple math. This was her bread and butter. She's a math teacher and she made up math songs to lots of different concepts, and it was absolutely beautiful. Now, in my first years of teaching, I would not break out in song with my kids because I cared more about what people thought of me. When we're younger, we do now. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. And so she would then, well, back then it was on cassette tapes. So she would record on cassette tapes her doing the songs, and then I would play them in my room for my kids. So I didn't have to sing them. But I think I wanted to hold on to this music thing a little longer now that Cheri said that. And Cheri, you said music triggers before auditory and something. You said something,
Visual.
and I didn't get it
We
written
always
down.
talk about the fact that there's three different learning styles: vision, auditory, and movement. But music and rhythm are going to trigger even before those.
Okay.
So I just put a new post in school. It says, "What math jingles do you use in your classroom?" So later on, after we're done, go ahead and let me know what jingles you use in your classroom.
And there's actually one that I use and I can't take credit for it. And since I'm talking and I'll have to find the link, but it's the 12 song. I've sang it to all of you before. And with my second graders in the last couple weeks, with my second graders, we've been skip counting by 12s. I do this with kinder and first grade also. And I do it this early in the year. We skip count by 12s. And teachers are like, I can't have you come in and skip count by 12s in my classroom. They don't even know how to like count by ones. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the point because math isn't sequential. See, we have to do a lot of out of context math. We have to do what cognitive science calls interleaving, some things that are out of context, out of the ordinary. One of the reasons that we have so many deficits and math scores are so dismal in the US is because we try to stay linear and sequential, and we don't do certain concepts until kids have mastered the previous ones. That is not how math should be taught because that is not how math is learned. So I want to randomly go in and have kids skip count by 12s. Now, what I do in those earlier grades to do this is I have quick dots, a set of dots that there are 12 of them, and we whisper count. So to get to the first number, we whisper 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so once we count that chunk of dots, there's 12 dots in a chunk in a rectangle. I want you to hear this because in our level 2 math session, rectangles are the most essential for every kids to engage in every week of school. Every week of school, no matter what the grade level, I need kids seeing rectangles. Every week of school, every grade level in mathematics, I need kids seeing rectangles. There are so many variations of rectangles. And that is really what today's session is about. But I have quick dots, 12 dots in the form of a rectangle. The dimensions are 3 by 4. My second graders know what dimensions mean. It means how tall, how long. It means that a rectangle is 2 dimensions because we name it with 2 numbers, 3 by 4. And so my kids have all this lingo and terminology. Now they circle 12 on a 100 chart or 120 chart because that's the first number we count when we skip count by 12s. It's the first number, 12. The second number we count, we can whisper count to figure it out. So we can touch dots again. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Now, yesterday when I was doing this with a group of second graders, when I got to 7, 8, 9, some of the kids said 9 because they saw the rectangle of 12, but in their head, they wanted it so bad to be 9. So when we got to 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, like they yelled 21. And I knew they were going to because they yelled 9 on the previous instead of 12. So only a couple kids, so we call that the loud number. So 2 kids were like 21. And then the rest of the class kept going 22, 23. And so they just experientially caught, oh shoot, it's not 21. I'm not really sure why it's not 21, but nobody. And then we continued. They saw then there were 3 more dots, 22, 23, 24. So I said, okay, how much is 112? 12. How much are 2 12s? 24. And they're seeing this with dots, with a visual, touching them. And the dots are arranged in a rectangle. This is all very deliberate and intentional. And then they have their chart, their number chart. They now circle 24. So then I'll reiterate. How much is 112? 12. How much are 2 12s? 24. What's the first number you circled on your 120 chart? 12. What's the second number you circled? 24. So it's always doing things, the same thing in a different way with a different flavor. Now we whisper again from 24 to know the next number. And then I'll have kids predict. What do you think before we whisper? What do you think the next number is going to be? 25, 30, 27. They don't know. So then we whisper count. Okay. We just said 24 was our loud number. Let's whisper 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Nope. 34, 35, 36. So how much are 3 12s? 36. What are you going to circle on your chart? 36. So it's very repetitive, but very visual. It's very tactile because they can touch dots. Very iterative. So huge thing I want kids to see and experience every week at every grade level in math is rectangles. The second thing I want them to see and experience, I'm going to say every week, but I really mean every day. Every week is iterations. Iterations. In the math standards, the very first year that the word iterate is in the standards, in the actual standards document, is grade 1. We do not have kids iterating enough. Those are in the content standards, it says iterate. Now, in the mathematical practices, the practice standards, there is a standard called repeated reasoning, which is very closely aligned to iterating. So I need kids to do this a lot. Now, you might be listening to this and thinking, that's great, Jonily, I'll do whatever you say, but I don't know what that means. Pin that for a moment. You've seen an example of it, but pin it. Then we say, how much are 4 12s? Let's do it together. Let's whisper count as a class. Then I released the kids and I said, okay, go ahead on your own and you're going to circle how much 5 12s, 6 12s, 7 12s are. Now they had 120 charts. So one of the questions I wrote on the board is, how many skip counts by 12s is 120? And then I wrote it a different way. How many 12s is 120? Because that was the last number on their chart. And then the next question I wrote on the board as they were working then on their own was, how much is 12 12s? You see how that jumped from a very linear, iterative process to very nonlinear, out of context. Cognitive science calls that interleaving. So I'm using science of learning for mathematics in those examples I just gave. Yes, some of what we do needs to be iterative, repetitive, linear, but there needs to be lots of jolts of what I'm going to call novelty, because novelty motivates us. Novelty re-triggers the brain. Expect the unexpected. And the science behind novelty is interleaving. I use the phrase out of context because for them it seems out of context but connected. But what it does is it breaks the linear repetitive cycle. Because if kids only learn in linear repetitive cycles, they're falling short of high math achievement.
That's a wrap on today's look at nonlinear instruction and why our Type A math habits sometimes hold students back. Next week, we dive into the heart of the Mastery Math method: rectangles, interleaving, iteration, and why kids should be working with structure, not worksheets. This is where classrooms get transformed. And hey, if you're loving this and want to get the full workshop where we go step by step into the Mastery Math method, you can sign up to experience one workshop for just $47. The link is waiting for you in the show notes. Leave your comments below.